Hi, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Esoterics Today with Amber and Satara. And just to remind everyone who tunes into us, whether you watch us on YouTube or listen to us on SoundCloud or find us on our Esoterics Today Facebook page, closed Facebook page, please ask to be invited. Um, you will hear conversation, hopefully from a practical spin and viewpoint around your own well-being. We try to keep this very esoteric dialogues, all of these esoteric topics, pretty centered around a practical theme, something useful in your daily life as a highly conscious, highly expanded soul here in the third dimension. Because the conversations do get pretty stretched out, pretty expanded, but we always try to bring it back to something hopefully that you'll find useful, thoughtful, or something that you could go away and Google a little more about and learn about. As such, I am Amber Chamberlain, the Suburban Lightworker. We have with us today, of course, our fantastic co-host, Satara Jules Lightbringer, extraordinaire. And our topic today really focuses around Lightworker mission. Like, once you realize you're a Lightworker, that usually means that you are also being called to work. You're being called to mission in the third dimension at a highly transfigurative, transformative time on our beloved Mother Earth, Gaia. And I should also say maybe Eartha Tiamat. We could add all kinds of names because she's called by many. Yes, Satara. Yeah. So I'm introducing our topic and going to turn it over to Satara to kick us off. It is all about Lightworker mission, what some of those or many of those missions look like, and how do we know we have those missions. I think that you all will recognize yourselves here. And if you don't quite, you're on the cusp of doing so. That's usually how unfoldment in consciousness and deep consciousness works, one breadcrumb at a time. Sometimes an avalanche, the whole bag of bread. It's a lot sometimes. All right, turning it over, because I'm making Satara giggle, turning it over to you, Satara. So if you will take us into what is a light worker.
For me, anybody that is terming themselves a light worker is somebody that is working in some sort of service to humanity or the planet or both. It is far broader than that, but for this conversation, I'm trying to keep it more structured into our immediate surroundings and what most of us kind of work with. A lot of light workers will be working in the therapist field, so whether that's just physical therapy, or whether you are looking deeper with more of the holistic therapy aspects, or even into as far as like psychoanalysis. It's all very much in service to others and for the greater well-being of the greater populace, rather than just self-work. Now, don't get me wrong, self-work is the core of everything. However, it is beyond that, to look beyond to your other selves on the planet at this moment and to help your other aspects in whatever form they are taking at this time. So whether you want to be working with humans, whether you want to be working with animals, whether you want to be working with the flora and fauna, whatever you want to be working with is classed as light work because you're doing more than just yourself.
So I didn't identify Satara as a light worker until a colleague and friend of mine, maybe 7 years ago now, just mentioned to me, as I was telling her, we were on our way to hear a TED Talk downtown, and I said, hey, and she is also a light worker, but very much a Buddhist and also a highly expanded person. And I was talking to her saying, gee whiz, and an intuitive like I am. And I said, are you having a real increase in your experience here? Are you having a lot more awareness than ever? I started asking her because I really didn't have that many people to ask. Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, to a certain extent. And she said, are you really talking about, yourself as a light worker? do you know, even as awakened and as aware and as a healing artist, a psychotherapist, and holistic health person all these years, because I wasn't reading any of that literature, I wasn't on Facebook that way. I didn't have that term. Am I wrong? The other one was, I had the term star seed much earlier than I had the word light worker. Can you identify that maybe the term light worker itself has taken off in terms of a trigger word for our collective?
I would say so. I mean, Lightwork has only been around, I would say, perhaps 10 to 15 years at the very outside, is more commonly known. Before that, we were really still acting out a lot of the separation game in I am a therapist, I am a masseur, I am a whatever we wanted to be. So we're still kind of being in boxes. The term light worker to me has started to break those boxes down to give a general word to encompass all, rather than the separation idea of the qualification or qualifications, depending on what we're talking about. So yeah, I see that sort of came in after 2012 massively. It was already starting to ripple through before, but the 2012 really did kind of like springboard that to a different level, which is brilliant.
Which is brilliant. And could you just, for this conversation, as that trigger at 2012, could you just describe the 2012 trigger? Why I'm referring to it as a trigger? Could you just give our audience sort of the thumbnail sketch about what happened in 2012?
Basically, it was another convergence that sort of happened. So you're looking at a blending of timelines that went on at that point, with some of the defunct and worn out timelines moving to one side to be able to move forward with a whole different ball game of opportunity. From a greater consciousness or Akashic point of view, we basically moved up a different run on the ladder to where we were before as a general consensus, which basically means that there was enough people on the planet holding a higher resonance to allow some to kind of fall away at that time.
Does that mean that because our listeners or viewers are familiar with the construct of consciousness in terms of a harmonic, in terms of an octave, did you just describe an advancement in a harmonic within our octave?
Very much so. Knowing that the true harmonic is a 12-note harmonic, whereas predominantly here we have only worked with the 8-note octave. We are starting to be able to look at bridging that gap between the two. We're able to bring some of those harmonics in, albeit briefly at the moment, to hold space here. So it's sort of a stepping stone to move back fully into that true harmonic.
So in the Atlantean age, as a side note, guys, I just have to ask my sister this. So as a side note, for example, the ancient Lemurians and the ancient Atlantean, Atlantis planetary existence. Would you describe them residing, or were they residing in our octave at a different harmonic within our octave, or?
Very much so. They were both existing on the 12 harmonic rather than the 8th. That started by the end days of sort of Atlantis going into Hypta, Sumeria kind of times, had started to be around the 8 to 9. There was a slight glitch between 8 and 9 because the thought process was that it would be 12, 9 is how it would go down, but actually it went slightly under what was expected and went to the 8.
So the Atlantean specifically placed on that octave, we're in the same octave, we're just at a different place on the harmonic than the
Yes.
peak experience. Okay. That's
Very
really,
much.
I think we just cleared up some things I could almost hear the questions around that, but I always like to stop and ask pointed questions when I know that we're saying something really compelling, even though it's a little bit off topic. But let me bring us back to mission. So I'm going to describe, well, first of all, let's you and I give name to all the various types of missions that we know of, because you kept it pretty specific to the planet and to the cosmology. How did you describe it? The planet and the...
Good question. How did I describe it? I think.
I know, girl, because
Well,
I thought, my God, once you get off planet, you've got everything.
I was kind of on planet and solar system, sort of not really reaching further around the photon belt. Was where I'm kind of going from, because I'm just thinking, with just an hour to go at, if we start to bleed out across creation, we've got weeks on this.
We do have weeks on this, but okay. All right. So I want to just start calling out some of the more expanded Lightworker missions. You gave some of the more conventional boxed ones.
Yes.
The therapist, the teacher, even to the Buddhist hierarchies and the Indian Devic hierarchy, the actual roles that people play in their spiritual expressions, and the gurus, and the any service to other soul historically on the linear history. I'm more interested right now for this conversation to share what I've become aware of in the last number of years around other roles that people are assuming and wear sort of as part of their presentation on the planet. I certainly have it now. I have one to describe. I think you can describe yours.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about the other word that has come to bear too, see, is way shower.
Yes.
Which I prefer. I find it really beautiful.
Yeah, it's got a very nice feel and energy just to that word. It's not saying that the way shower necessarily knows anything more or is above or beyond. Way showers walk next to, not in front. However, a lot of way showers are bringing through knowledge that has been perhaps lost here or buried or misconstrued.
Right. I like that description too, and it does have a vibratory resonance that suits so many of us today. We shine the light into the path.
Yeah.
Way, but so in my own awareness now, I'm aware that we have people who their mission is specifically in nature. It is particularly focused around trees, communication with the tree realm part of plants. Yeah. I'm aware of those that are particularly way showers that are particularly involved with fairies and gnomes.
Yeah, so the elemental aspects of, and devas.
They are elementals, and that humans embodied in 3D have relationship that they light work there within.
Yes.
I'm aware of planetary guardians. Yes. We were just talking about that. People who are aware that their job is to hold particular resonance in their vibratory system, in their holographic experience, in their Merkaba. Yeah. I'm aware that there are cosmologic, galaxy guardians, humans who are aware that they galactically, in their fractal experience, guard this planet and this planet's solar system and the planet in a particular way. And there's a million different ways they do that.
Yes, very much so. It's infinite, isn't it?
Let me see. I'm also aware of people who have, specifically healing missions with other humans, with
Mhm.
energy workers, body workers, healing touch,
Mhm.
that kind of light worker, Reiki masters. Um, what else am I aware of? I'm aware of, people, light workers whose role is to embody one or two, sometimes just one, sometimes a few more, sometimes a lot, ascended masters and angelics.
Mhm.
That's their light work, and they know it.
Mhm.
Um, okay, that gives some name to some of them. What have
Okay.
I missed here?
You've missed the oceans and waters. But hey,
Just those. Okay.
but it's only oceans and waters, which had been my place for a while. I worked with the oceans and waters for many years, so of course that's top of my list.
Okay.
Yeah, planetary grids and connections, things like axiatonal alignments throughout the quantum fields. I'm still trying to stay quite close to planet, and typically I've gone already.
Do the best you can. I started there, so keep going.
Looking at the timelines between parallel realities to be able to bring knowledge to this reality and timeline that we're on that could perhaps be missed if there wasn't workers like myself surfing around the whole of the creation, multiverse, omniverse, whatever you want to class it as being, that particularly hook into, what we need to bring here. What's next on the agenda? What level can we trigger the greater consciousness to next to be able to hold and tap into that next level of programming? It's so diverse. I know people that will just work with the elements. That's their roles. Whether they want to call themselves an alchemist or whatever they want to call themselves, they are working with earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. That covers so many traditions across the planet. I don't think there's one tradition that doesn't have those within. Whereas you're looking at like the druids, whether you're looking at shamans all the way across the world, even down to witch doctors in like Africa, they're all working with those elements, but in their own unique way. We've got some incredible indigenous tribes here that have specific roles within their whole tribe. They're born into, I'm thinking of like the Dogon tribe, particularly when I'm kind of going here, of course.
Yes.
But they've incarnated particularly for specific work within a small circle of family, basically within their tribe, and they rarely step out of that role. And I just think it's incredible what we choose.
It's incredible. And the dream walkers, those in Australia, the original Aboriginal people.
Aboriginals, yeah, totally incredible.
Yeah. So yeah. So I guess you listening and watching, I think I just wanted Satara and I, after we sort of defined the broadest term of what is light work and light working, then to go call out between us all the beautiful, rich ways we see human souls. And I use the word human very broadly, but incarnated beings on this planet, light working. Hey, Satara, I got a question for you. Does the plant world light work?
It does indeed. Because the plant world is still a being the same as we are beings.
Yeah.
Blade of grass is a being.
Does the mineral world light work?
It does indeed.
Oh, we're going to get there. And does the animal kingdom light work?
It does indeed. I've often referred to the animals on this planet as being the true masters here.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, no kidding. So I think I wanted our listeners and viewers, as we moved into more specific descriptions, and Satara and I like to use ourselves as examples just because it's helpful when we do that and we show you things, we tell you about ourselves, because you'll see yourselves in us. I mean, we were just giggling about this before the show. Listen, we're just a Brit and an American and two middle-aged ladies having a talk about, all this expanded stuff. There's no big smoke machine behind us, and there's no weird set behind us glowing. We're just talking about very practically, very simply, what are these really highly esoteric topics. So now that we've sort of said some of these things, and you gave a little bit of a hint as to the way in which what you know your mission to be, let me speak to my mission. As people consider themselves as they come to the conversation. So as Satara mentioned, one of the beautiful light working ways when you're working conventionally in the world of things, you find our healing artists, such as myself. That would be certainly physicians, teachers also in a lot of ways of all kinds, but and counselors and therapists. So I have been a psychotherapist for many, many years, and then shifted more into my intuitive work thanks to that 2012 deepening, and then the 2016 I went what is not just what I call, but what is termed in our collective as going galactic. Satara was born galactic. And when we say going galactic, it means you gained an awareness of it. You've always been galactic. You just didn't know it. Satara just remembered it. Am I right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, totally. So, I remember some random stuff, as you know.
You do. So as I became aware of that and had a pause in my more corporate conventional career here in the U.S., I took that opportunity to deepen my quantum knowledge, my quantum awareness, my quantum conversation capability, my quantum healing and loving and light working capabilities. What does that mean? It means I awoke to my light worker self that expanded beyond the counseling office, expanded beyond hospitals and systems in the U.S. It expanded out of that and became planetary awareness. It became earth grid awareness, inner earth awareness. It became cosmologic, star family, planetary systems, planetary, should I say cosmologic event awareness, events awareness. Once I gathered sort of all of that steam, shall we say, because it unpacks really quickly. Usually, when you go galactic, you unpack that. You're gonna take off flying usually. And I did. And for instance, when we had a big pipeline issue, I'm going to give a practical example. We had a big pipeline issue here in the States. I believe this was North Dakota. And I'm blanking on the pipeline name. Some of you will recall it faster than I'm going to. But we had a Native American population here that really stood their ground. I, as a light worker, did not feel the need to physically travel. I actually, what is called bilocated. There's a bilocation approach in energy in Harvard and Stanford and your institutions, Cambridge, can tell you all about that in terms of awareness. And I stood with those individuals. I stayed with that process all the way through. I also learned in that time to build geometric form, that I joined with the other light workers who know how to do that. It's quite natural, and sent my energy over that situation. I've since gone on a lot since then. I get called up, when I'm leaving the grocery store, I get called to send my energy to Venezuela. I get called to send my energy to Bosnia. I get called to, and usually for me that comes in the form of a geometric call and response, and I join my awareness there and light work. So I'm a planetary light worker and planetary grid worker. I also am a keeper in my neighborhood. I live in a suburban neighborhood that is groomed to the teeth. Okay, it's mowed, it's insecticided, it is, the crepe myrtles are cut down, they're butchered into these horrible looking sticks that I think I can almost hear them screaming. Okay, my job in my neighborhood is to apply an enormous amount of love and to thank them on a daily basis. Really, I'm outside almost every day of my life, well, I am, and I'm down to the blades of grass. As a light worker, I think that blade of grass for blessing my neighborhood with its presence and its love and its energy and its oxygen and its exchange. I talk regularly to the trees and to that incredible network. If you want to know some stuff, the schnizzle, get up with some trees, right?
Very much so.
I want to just give you guys some reference for what the practical magic, the practical alchemy is of a light worker. Yeah, I take a kid to school, I deal with the bus, I deal with public school, I am in the suburbs, I have the same kind of life most of you do. But I have a highly esoteric suburban life, okay, that brings me an enormous amount of love, joy, and appreciation for the third dimension and for the miracle it is to be embodied in form. So I wanted to give you guys some description around that. Thank you for hearing all of that, because I think you're going to hear yourselves, because I know you guys do some pretty awesome things. I know you do, and I feel your love, and I feel your support, and I feel your presence, especially in those moments where we're dealing with natural disaster, geopolitical disturbance. My heart joins with yours. So I feel you. So Satara, those are my 2 cents worth of light work. There's a lot more I could tell you and say. We just don't have time. But in the end of the time, turning it over to Satara to say, okay, sister, how do you light work?
Before I do, I'm going to say 2 words: standing rock.
Thank you, baby. It was killing me. I hate when that happens. It's like postmenopausal, man. Standing rock. Thank you very much, Satara. All the way over there from England, from the UK. Get this old American straight.
But this is how it works, isn't it? We just have like these like mind blanks. We just think, yeah, I can see it. I can feel the energy. That's fantastic. What is it?
Because what was happening to me?
You can feel the energy, and you're so stood in that spot that the human words have just gone ping.
I was doing the best I could to give the words while trying to describe the experience I have. Yeah. It's so very hard. That's a good point. Okay.
Yeah, totally. We just stand in that energy, and everything else goes ping, and leaves. It's just like, okay, which is why I usually revert to light language, because I can explain everything in light language, and then I try and do the human version and go, I'm trying to grasp.
I know. It's like, because we're talking about what Satara is describing is, for those listening and watching, is the challenge to calibrate a daily life with practical habits and routines of a light worker while doing all the daily habits of an average human being and a human walk. And that's why we're having these conversations. We know what you're going through. We know the pain, we know the challenges, and we know the need to calibrate.
Yeah, totally.
Because it keeps on coming. But anyway, so tell us about your light working self, Satara.
I've been very diverse since I've got here, as you can imagine. As a child, I worked mainly with the elementals and fae, because that's what children do. And I had more elemental and fae around me than actual people, because I lived in the middle of nowhere, so it's fantastic. So I had a ball as a kid, because the fae have a wicked sense of humor. I think is the best way of putting it. Quite risque, really, with some tricks that they used to get up to. And I have been in big trouble in my lifetime for stuff that I've found hilarious, but not actually done myself. So yeah, so that was my baptism of fire onto this planet, was being played up by the elementals. But moving things, taking things, borrowing things. They always say they borrow things. Of course, they don't say how long that's for. More than human lifetimes in some cases. Borrowed them. So yes. So that kind of started me off to be able to understand different dimensions very, very quickly. Very, very quickly here, and how it was kind of working here. The fact that they could trip between like timelines and dimensions and disappear and come back at will. And I used to be like, I want to do that.
I want to do that.
I want to do that. Well, we do. If you're running around as like a 6, 7-year-old, you're like, hold on a minute, you've just popped off and come back. Can I do that? Yeah, show me how this works. So I was very, very interested how that kind of went on. But of course, it made me appreciate that every reality and dimension is here, because I watched them trip in and out of them.
Oh, yeah. So
that was a fantastic teaching for playing hide and seek on a different level.
Universal hide and seek.
So I kind of went from there. By the time I'm sort of hitting double figures, so like 10, 11, I'm then starting to work more with angelics and galactics. So I'm already kind of back off planet by then. So I had a few years kind of getting to know a few of the ropes here very early, and then I kind of went on to a different level. So I'm then starting to look at the different constellations. I'm starting to recognize particular craft, particular noises, particular vibrations coming into my field, so I would know if there was, for instance, a mothership approaching. And approaching can be like, I don't know, 5,000 miles away, but you hone your sense, so you know when it's coming. You can feel it's coming. You feel their transmission wave because of the way that the energy kind of moves. So I kind of got used to that, and perhaps seeing the world slightly different because of that perspective then. Being able to drill down from the very center of the earth and the whole inner earth sort of realms, and moving up layer by layer to be able to understand the denseness and the grids and the richness here.
I have a question for you, because I think I'm going to ask this for the folks who watch and listen.
Okay.
When you say that you were 10 and 12 and you were working with the angelics and the ascended masters, can you give us an example or two of what you were doing?
Very much so. The angelics, I found at that point, were a lot more serious than the fairies. So they started to get me to take things more seriously than I had before, and actually be able to see the workings of things rather than just playing with it. And although I was like working and playing at that time with the fairies, we were healing trees, we were looking at the flowers, we were honoring the divas, we were in the like lakes, ponds, rivers, seas, whatever. It just kind of moved me slightly away from the core energy of the planet in a way, to just a slightly different level, and to be able to look at a broader spectrum. A lot of people would see that I kind of pulled back to be able to then look at countries on the planet rather than just where I was. So that experience with the angelics was getting me to see a broader picture. It was making me know a bit of geography, which is more than I kind of really did in geography lessons.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So it, oh yeah, okay, I can see where.
As a Lightworker, I have become much more of a worldwide citizen.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking and awareness speaking, yeah.
So you do start to have an awareness of, like, you know, where everywhere is, where people are, how it works, and then to be able to pull back. I was starting to pull back off planet really before the crafts kind of came into it, really, to be able to move my consciousness away from the planet to look back at it was something I was being shown and pulled back to look. So yes, you're here, but actually you're here too. So getting me to realize the omnipresence of self.
Now you use the word craft, and I'm going to know that that means you were starting to have the experience of being with star family,
Yes.
star beings on their various travel
Mm-hmm.
travels and machinery and craft,
Yeah.
or ships as people identify. So you, it seems to me like you were by 10 or 12 beginning to, they started you with the fae, the fairies, the
Mm-hmm.
realm, and playful, very, playfully and trickery in a fun way,
Mm-hmm.
getting you dimensionally to awaken you more quickly. And by the way, I want to say this to our folks listening and watching. It's very characteristic of our kind that we all have a blueprint for who we're going to be here, obviously, and then how we're going to unpack it. And the timing is all perfect. And there's a million timelines associated with all that. You do it this way, this way, this way, this way, and infinitum, but it's still part of the blueprint package. And what Satara is describing is a very specific to her. Sometimes we're going to have beings who come, such as Satara, who is going to need to for mission's sake, unpack her remembrance of the Akash and beyond more quickly than, say, someone like myself in this instance. The remembrance of it or the skill set. So we got you to 10 or 12. So it seems to me that the light worker aspect was your really now becoming at 10 and 12 and 13 to 15 awakened. So go from there.
Yeah, well, I just carried on going from there, really, quite happily, but keeping my head under the radar so that I was looking kind of somewhere near normal for like the likes of education and paying attention in class more than I had been previously. Because you can be sidetracked. When you've got one of your guides telling you that the teacher's an idiot and what they're actually saying is going to have no relevance in your life whatsoever, difficult to keep the concentration going and the actual, wanting to do the subject.
Yeah, that's really complex.
Yeah, totally. But it was interesting to kind of go through, but it also made me very aware of what I needed to pay attention to and what didn't matter.
So at that point then, Sitar, because we're talking about light work.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is the story about building quickly, remembering that you are here for a specific set of purposes.
Yeah, totally.
At what point did you become aware and then working? So, it's like I say sometimes with the professional endeavor, are you aware and working? Are you at the awareness stage, or are you at past awareness and now you're at the working stage?
Working at it. I was able to read for people very, very easily as like a teenager. So there's a few people in my close circle that would know I would do that. So I would be able to sort of be in service on some level as a teenager. I did, as we got towards exams, step away from it, and mainly with the guidance of like my light team, my guides, helpers, however you want to term them, being aware that in this reality I had to have qualifications because I would not be taken seriously further down the line if I did not knuckle down, get all of the O levels as it was here then, and then A levels, and then into like degrees. So I was aware that I had to knuckle down for a certain amount of time, and I did. From about the age of 14 up until the age of 26, I basically knuckled down.
That was me. You and I are very similar.
I knuckled down. I got the pieces of paper that were deemed necessary here at that time, which you're talking like 80s, early 90s. Okay. And after I did that, it was very, very interesting because, of course, the famous age of 27 then popped up, which 27 as an age ripples through the human consciousness like wildfire because the known gurus and spiritual like guides that we've had here across all sorts of religions and paths have all woken up and smelt the coffee at the magical age of 27.
Yeah.
I was no different. I was put back into role at the age of 27.
You were what?
Put back into role at the age of 27.
What does that mean?
It basically was I was allowed to take a breather from the paperwork. I was asked to still keep on amassing paperwork and skills and qualifications, but to actually be able to do that when I wanted to, rather than a put your nose to the grindstone and do it kind of routine, which I had been doing. So it was nice to kind of take that bit of a breather. I was introduced at that point to something called meditation that I'd never heard of. Because the way I do meditation, because I link in so well, I don't need to do the let's do breathing, let's close my eyes, let's go in. I just tap in.
Either.
Yeah, so it's a different thing. When I learned about open-eyed meditation and the fact that people meditated like I did anyhow, I just thought, why am I sat there thinking, and what am I doing? But I learned so many different breathing techniques, meditation techniques, relaxation techniques throughout it. I understand why I was doing it.
Yeah.
But what really kind of hit home for me at that point, I'd always been able to, if somebody got a headache, I'd just touch the headache would go away. If somebody had hurt themselves, I'd just like administer plasters, bandages, whatever was going on. But while I was doing that, I was helping with pain and seeing the energy and moving the energy out from the holographs. So yeah, it's been a real ride, I think, from a point of view of like the steps. There's been so many steps to where I am now.
Right, it really has been. So what now would you, in the way I described, in the way we talked about light working, and mission, because I think our collective at large is discovering their mission.
Yeah, totally, because it takes time, which is why I've kind of done the explanation I've done for people to realize, yes, I was born awake, yes, I've got all these memories, but actually this is my training to get to mission. So yeah, you might remember what you are, where you've come from, what you were doing before you were human. But actually, this is what you're here for, and this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to understand.
Bingo.
Will be, regardless of what you want to do, this is what you're doing.
Amen to that, sister.
Yeah,
How many times have I tried to push that river up that rock, or that rock up that river? I've done a lot of pushing the river, trying to not be who I clearly was.
Yeah.
Because
totally.
who I was, I didn't have a lot of external references for, no mirrors. And I was like, well, this sucks, as my 2-year-old likes to say. And I'm like, yeah. But hey, so Satara, could you today give us an idea of how you light work from day to day? Give us a couple of examples of that.
I'll give you a couple of examples of what I do now. Like yourself, I worked with the grids on the planet, planetary connections at one point, but then I moved totally off the planet to just be able to work within the multiverse. So most of work I do now is working within parallel realities within the multiverse to seek and harness knowledge, basically.
To seek and harness knowledge. Now, you introduced me to the term beyond the next rung out in our linear phraseology to what is called the kahanic.
Yes.
Would you say that you are sort of a bit of a contributor to the kahanic, or a librarian?
Yeah, I'm the boring one that does the filing. I just flip through and go, oh yeah, that's what I want.
Cardex, the Dewey Decimal System.
I was explaining to some friends of us both, actually, in Australia a few weeks ago, when we were just discussing how we each work. And I said, well, I stand in what looks like the middle of nowhere. And I literally then get omnipresence, which means I can see 360 degrees all the way around me. So I will go into like the parallel sphere sphere, if you will, stand in the center, know what I've gone there for, and watch it ripple out all around me with all the different ways in which that idea has been conceptualized and pulled apart in every reality until I find the bit I'm looking for.
Okay, now I'm going to do some interpretation for this crowd that's listening to what you just said. First of all, I'm a very advanced being, and and able to usually tell you to follow Satara out to where she's going and to see what she's doing. And I have a very difficult time grasping what she's talking about right now. I can hear it, but it's a good example of the differences sort of among our tribe, our large collective. Satara is using words to the best of her ability. It would be better said in light language.
It would.
I would understand it better, and I wouldn't even quite understand why I understand, because I couldn't say it in words, because so much at this quantum level, quantum field work, a part of our mission doesn't meet any of the words that we can use to describe it. But you gave hats off to you for that attempt, but at least you gave us, what you did was you gave us a reference of yourself in a way that we don't typically conceive ourselves. But yet we've all worked this way before, so to speak, or will again, or are already doing it, depending how you like to put it all now. So Satara just simply has the blueprint, soul agreement, soul contracts awareness to be able to say what she just said and have the awareness of herself. But
and try and put it, you know, in a human context. If you imagine yourself stood in a bubble and everything going on possibly in that bubble, and just pinpointing what you need to take from it and then go, thanks guys, and leave.
Ciao.
It's you experiencing you in multiple realities, doing multiple versions of one thing.
Yeah. Now, I will say to you, as I have mentioned before, like I can sometimes reference planetary activity and I only get glimpses. And my glimpses either come to me clairaudiently, so I'll hear it. Usually when I'm just sort of relaxing, I'll hear the words or I'll hear the content. Or I'll be in astral travel, dream time, the 3 a.m., 4 a.m. zone. And I will remember some of the experiences that are other planetary. And a lot of you are starting to have that or have had that a long time. But I'm also here to say that, as I mentioned, I think in the last episode, that kind of experience about experiencing fractal selves elsewhere is going to, and you'll think it's you like this, in this skin suit, as we like to say, but it's not, because it's actually Satara who mentioned to me, it's been probably a couple months ago, she said, Amber, you're going to begin to learn to look down at your body, look down at yourself, because you think it's you like this in this skin suit, and you'll look and you go, oh, wow, no, it's not. Okay, see, I haven't quite achieved that experience. But by the way, there's another set of light working and light workers here. We know that we have crystal workers, people who work specifically in the mineral kingdom as humans. They work with minerals, crystal workers. We know that we have light, literally people who use color rays, who know how to harness color and build with color and use color for all kinds of purposes. I myself have the ability to use color from a healing perspective. I'm sensitive to the hertz vibratory measurement. Also the ability to harness color in certain saturations, percentages around healing the human body. But you could do that with, there's people who use that planetarily too.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, and some of my favorites of late just to explore would be then, although I am not not of this light working kind. Satara is, and some other people we know for sure, and some of you are crystal skull keepers. And I thought, and Satara thought, hey, let's go get some examples of what a light worker who has some crystal skulls, what goes on with that. And Satara, I have some questions. You're going to show us.
I am. I'm going to show you a couple, actually. I'm going to show you a Tibetan Himalayan skull. This is master skulls.
How old is he?
Adorned, very beautiful. Some lovely Buddhist infinity knots all the way round. Basically, they're the same as any kind of tool that we decide to work with here, whether it's just a basic crystal, whether it's been carved to create a greater consciousness. Any carving will hold the consciousness of the carver, but also that carver's team of light team with who they're working with to bring through that energy. Skulls like this one that was held in a Tibetan monastery for many centuries will hold the vibration of all of the worship that has gone around, the beauty of people there just giving love offerings, because this would have been adorned with things like flowers. When it came here, I had to move some of the patina because it had been layered upon layered of saffron oil to honor it. So of course that gets sticky when it's a few hundred years old. So we removed the sticky. But an awful lot of the skull keepers as well, certainly in this planetary reference, will be attracted because of the Atlantis connection. In Atlantis, the greater consciousness was held on the planet at that time by 12 skulls and a 13th master skull that held the consciousness of all 12 within, to be able to be the beginning of what we think of like the Akashic, the greater consciousness and Akashic being really one and the same. It's all past, present, future, all rolled into one there. But yeah, and people are just drawn to whatever they're drawn to. This is one of my favorites, to be fair. But it sparkles.
So it's crystal quartz.
It is, and it's got garnets and green onyx inlaid with Tibetan silver.
Satara, how do you interact, or do you consciously, with him today, and why do you, if you do? At what points do you?
Basically, I find that it can be quite useful as a focus because it is linked into a particular part of the consciousness. This particular one links through to a few planetary systems, one being the Pleiades, so it's very much on the spiritual sort of side of things, the higher spiritual way of working like the Pleiadians did. It also has a smattering of Arcturus in there as well. So there is technology that links to this skull as well. So I find it interesting to have those links ever present rather than me having to bilocate or step into a fractal for just a little bit of information that I can just get from here. So call me a lazy light worker.
No, I say you are you're practical, and you have things streamlined, which is my favorite way of living.
Yeah.
Could you, okay, and by the way, you guys who watch and listen, yes, you're going to have some awareness about the 12 crystal skulls and the 13th and the awakening that is talked about right now. Go out and Google some of the crystal skull content if you're wanting to come up around what that's all about. Some of you are going to be called to do that research. Some of you are skull keepers. We have a couple people who are going to watch this who are skull keepers in the making. And Satara, let's see who else you got there.
I've got a very beautiful, looks quite dark in this light just because we're sort of early evening here, but this is a very dark smoky quartz, celestial smoky quartz. It's got some nice pockets of water within it. It's got all sorts going on. This particular one links through to Sirius and also Hypta. So,
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said Sirius, because and I saw him before the show started, but just as you held him up, I'm getting this ping right in here.
Yeah.
Right here, talking to me a little bit. Okay. Yeah.
So very, very lovely. Well, you can see how highly polished his ears. He's just reflecting the lamp. It's beautiful in here at the moment. But with a good lamp behind him, he is totally translucent, but he is just very, very dark version of the smoky quartz with some rainbows kind of going on, as you can see. If I kind of just flash through some of those. Whole constellations going on in there.
So this was, you told me, a piece out of Brazil, and Brazilian smoky quartz.
Yeah.
Smoky quartz. So tell me his connectivity and what is overlaid within him. What is
very much he brings forward an awful lot of what we would think of as ancient Egypt. He goes back further to Hayyipta. A little bit of Sumerian goes on in there as well. And when I think of like Sirius B particularly, Sirius B has the portal that jumps through to the dimension that what we think of as the Egyptian and Peruvian gods came from. Yeah. So you've very much got the South American, Peru, Mayan, Aztec, whole 9 yards going on that side of the world, and then up to like Sumeria, Persia, down to like Egypt. So we're talking very old civilizations here, kind of linked through him, which is why he is the weight he is. He weighs nearly 6 kilos. So we're talking over 3 pounds in weight. So he's not a lightweight.
So from
denseness is needed to hold that sort of information.
And I have we'll do another show, you guys, because I can just feel the questions. We will do another show on crystal skull keepers and some of the historical perspectives and how it comes to pass that these, as Sitara gave a clue about the Tibetan one, about how they become imbued and hold the energy within. But there's a lot more to ask around that. I can feel everybody's questions.
Yeah,
so totally. We'll get that show. But as a light worker, Sitara, would you engage with him or call on him from wherever you are when you're specifically wanting to do what?
If I'm looking for particular information or just like a generalization from somewhere, I find it easier to do that again rather than like biolocate or step into a fractal. The very fact that he holds more information than the first skull. Although that first skull, I adore it in every shape, manner or form. Very, very much the Buddhist tradition, very, very much was carved, put into a place and sat in that place. So therefore it's been in a way limited to that particular resonance that it has had around it for so long. Whereas this one, when I bought it directly from the carver. So it's very, very much a newish carve. It's probably been here 3.5 years perhaps now. So all it is known is the carver, the trip from Brazil, and me. So the very fact that it kind of has already linked to these places through the way the carver has worked as well, and I very much link to those places. And yes, I know I link to everywhere, the same as we all link to everywhere, but particularly I have a fondness and particular memories of exactly where this links to. So very much a special one for me because of that. Crystal version of me.
Yeah, version of you. And I think, guys, this kind of, and I guess I wanted us to have an opportunity to talk about, well, what is light work sort of broadly? What are the various ways we are hearing, seeing, and feeling light workers? And then to give an example through us as to what that looks like in our everyday lives. And
yeah, totally.
And Satara gave us a couple examples specific to a very narrow specialty or specialization, I think, in light work, which is crystal skull keeping. And Satara certainly is a crystal skull keeper. But now I want to kind of pop over before we round up finishing the conversation on this one, and just come back to something really human, really practical, about what happens among the lightworking community in terms of this one is better than that one's higher than that one's lower than that one's not right, that one's darker than that one's not heart-based, that one's not. Okay, Satara, what are you hearing when I say that? What am I asking to say here?
You're talking about the whole separation within the lightworking community, the them and us syndrome, I call it. I've also likened it to bitchcraft rather than witchcraft.
Bitchcraft.
Because we've all kind of been on the receiving end of some of this and gone, whoa, stop the horses, what just happened there?
What just happened? I have too, unwittingly. Who knew Metatron was such a divisive figure?
But you know, when you just think, all right, here we go then. And I can't quite work out why it's another separation technique here, because in theory it should be the steps out of the separation that we've been put in with the whole education system and everything else that goes on here. But yeah, it just fries my brain, because I just think, and why?
Oh,
we're all one ultimately, so huh?
And we've been all of it. I think that's the other part.
Yeah.
Anything that you're able to, that flips your switch and you have a feeling you're going to point the finger, just point, make it go so far east it comes west.
Yeah, and comes straight back. Yeah.
Comes straight back to you. Everything that you do that with people, this is your life. We are just passing through it. We are holographic. This whole conversation you drew unto you for your own curiosity and exploration. This is nothing but a holographic moment that you're having with us. You brought us to you. I'm bringing this to me. And so it's all your choice to explore. So if you point your finger at any of this, and better, worse, higher, lower, darker, lighter, it's all you.
Showing yourself where your work needs to next be.
Yeah.
That you balanced within yourself when something triggers you. If anything ever triggers me, I'm like, whoa, okay, why is it triggering me? What part of that was triggering me? Where did that come from? To be able to drill it down to work out what it is that's niggling me within there. What is it about myself that I haven't quite realized or seen?
That's a really
masters at hiding ourselves from ourselves.
Yeah, and it's a mastery walk, and the way of the way shower, the way of the light worker is many varied, long, deep, wide. We eddy out, we eddy back in, we paddle in, paddle out. And we are really here, whether we are Satara and her level of advancement, which is a way to just say it, or my level of expansion, we are all still here having a human experience among the human population. We're all here learning for the benefit of, just for source, for learning, for the Akash and the Kahanic and beyond. It's a matter of, I think, developing sovereignty. I haven't said that in a while to us, but remind me. And sovereignty comes with an enormous amount of self-responsibility. And there's no part of higher, lower, better, worse that is self-responsible.
Yeah, very, very much so.
It falls out of integrity. So anyway.
Yeah, a few years ago, I wrote something called 4 Pillars of the Heart that I have on my website, which talks about the 4 main tenets, really, of where we're coming from: the whole love, the integrity, honesty with self, and acceptance. And it's what we all need to be able to do, not only for those around us, but actually for ourselves. And it's harder to do that sometimes for yourself than it is for someone stood next to you.
Oh, absolutely. And that's been part of the entrainment, the programming that's so thick on this planet, that we come in very quickly and understand that the name of the game is the other.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time often to get back to the self.
Very, very much so.
Yeah, and it's how do you keep a good light worker down? It's the joke that I made yesterday when we were talking, Satara. It's like, how do you keep a good light worker from emanating beyond the end of their nose? You know, keep reflecting that it's about anything other than a sovereign life well lived.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that is not about sovereignty and a life well lived in the self is going to foreshorten your impact.
Yeah.
But
And
hey,
the whole experience is for being here.
yeah.
You know, we're here to experience this, so hell, we just got to get on with it.
Get on with it. We're advancing through this realm. We're advancing through the human kingdom. This is not our final stop. As a matter of fact, it's an infinite journey that we're on. But Satara, as always, this has been a delightful conversation. I suspect it's going to be meaningful to those who listen and watch with us. But please remember us on SoundCloud, Esoterics Today with Amber and Satara. We are on YouTube under the same name, and please ask to join our closed Facebook group where this material all goes there, and we put some supplementary things there from time to time too. Please tell your friends about these two women having these really interesting, somewhat strange, and generally good-natured conversations with each other. Much love, everybody. Please come to us again at Esoterics Today. Satara, always good to see you. Much love.
Much love. Bye.
Bye.